What's going on, my friends? Thank you for coming back and watching episode 15 of my series of stories I'm doing to show the utter chaos that used to mark my life as I was trying to persevere and figure out what was going on in my brain. All the while, I eventually discovered that what was going on in my brain is untreated bipolar, manic depression, PTSD, yada yada yada, whatever title I've got going on in my brain. That's what was affecting me, and it helped me understand a little bit better why I was making some terrible choices. But aside from all that, thankfully, God knew what was going on inside my brain, and He knew exactly what I needed. He knew exactly what I needed to go through, and eventually He brought me to a place where I was ready to get the treatment and change things about the way I was living. And that's coming. That day is coming here. We're moving along pretty quick through my time in Denver. So I want to jump right into this one, kind of treat it like part two, like the second part of a story that I was doing the last time, where I talked about Jake and I and our adventure atop of a mountain, and my deciding that it was time that I needed to get away from Jake. I was already starting to have, before I even went on this little adventure with Jake, I was starting to get some kind of rumblings in my brain thinking, things are getting a little out of control here. So I was talking to Amber secretly about my concerns and, thinking I cannot stand living with Jake anymore. And it's not because Jake was a bad guy. Believe me, as far as friends go, you cannot ask for a better friend than Jake. I love that dude. I miss him sometimes. He was a great friend. However, he was a terrible influence on me, so bad. But because Amber and I are talking, we're talking about some of these things, and she's got a little bit of a church background herself, so she understood what I was saying when I, just telling her that I feel awful inside because I'm not living the way I was raised to live. She got that. She figured that out. She knew what was going on. So there's that. Here's this foundation I'm setting up for this story. As I've been hinting at, the day was coming where I was going to eventually get fired from that phenomenal job that I had. I did. I absolutely did. This is before I ever moved out with Jake. So I quickly got another job, which I'll probably touch on that job a little bit later in a different story because it combines better with the details of that story. But for this story, for the purposes of this one, I burned every bridge of that job too, as I seem to be my favorite thing to do. I'm in Denver. And then I got another job. Well, this job was, to this day, the very best non-grown-up job I've ever had. I was a valet for one of probably the biggest valet companies in Denver. They just had incredible contracts and so many people, and it was awesome. I loved doing this valet gig. See, the thing is though, this valet gig was just not going to bring me enough money to keep living with Jake. And since I was already at that point where I'm like, I need to get out of here anyway. So these two factors allowed Amber the footing she needed to swoop in and completely manipulate the entire situation. She convinced me, I'll never forget her convincing me one afternoon that you want to get out of here. You want to get away from his terrible influence. You really can't afford it anyway. So how about you and I get an apartment together? I was like, okay, but you just said I don't make enough money to afford it here. I won't be the same situation with you. She's like, don't worry about that, Jeremy. I'll cover most of the rent, no problem, because she's still working that amazing job that I got fired from, that I got her the job there for her. So believe me, she could handle the whole apartment by herself. She just did not want to live alone. So I'm super intrigued by this because, again, if you remember, I told you a couple stories back, we were super attracted to each other, but we made the decision to, say no because Jake really liked Amber and she really liked being friends with us, and she didn't want to, interrupt this whole trio thing that she had going on. Believe me, I'm looking back now as I'm telling this, and I can see the manipulation and the conniving that was going on with her. So as she's telling me these things about, we can move an apartment together, you can get away from Jake. The other deciding factor for me was I was so sick of being single. I was just at that point in my life where I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I'll probably delve into this more in depth in different stories, but I've always had this problem. I mean, we're talking back to still in high school days, that I've always looked to a woman to fix my problems. Like she was going to be that missing piece that would solve why I felt the way I felt, because I still don't know what's going on with me. I still don't understand. I don't have that label yet that, I'm manic depressive and bipolar and PTSD and I don't know, short, all these different things going on in my brain. I just assumed that this woman, just the right woman, she would fix everything. Maybe this was going to be Amber, because we're now getting an apartment together. I'm thinking, well, we no longer have to keep our attraction secret because it's just her and I now. So I'm like, oh my goodness, yes. So combine all these mental problems I just explained to you and the fact that I truly, really, really want to get my life back on track. I thought this is the right decision. This is it. This is perfect. So I agreed. All right, Amber, let's go apartment hunting. We did. Jake never knew we were secretly doing this, and eventually we did find a halfway decent one. The one we found was absolutely nothing like the one I had been living in with Jake. It was, one with Jake is way up here, and this one that Amber and I found was way down here. But I didn't care anymore because I'm about to have my new girlfriend. I'm gonna be living with my new girlfriend. Eventually, I knew eventually at some point let's just date, and that my life was finally getting back on track. I was gonna settle down. Amber hated drugs, so I knew she would not be a bad influence on me, that she truly was going to be the one that was going to rescue me. No. Let's slow your roll, Jeremy. Back this truck up, because I find out that Amber no longer feels the same way about me. She was, unbeknownst to me, she had reconnected with her old high school boyfriend, and they were now dating, albeit long distance, because Amber grew up in Kansas. Her boyfriend was still there, but he was in the process of moving to Denver to be with her. I was simply just a roommate, a place card, so to speak, for her until he got there, and then the two of them would go off and get their own apartment together. This was the plan I did not know about. However, I found this out after I'd already signed a lease with her. I'd already told Jake I was moving out. That conversation with Jake was so uncomfortable. It felt like we were breaking up or something. It was just terrible. But now I'm stuck. I thought I was about to have this new life with the forbidden fruit of the last few months, but it just turned out she was using my attraction for her to get her own way. Emily was right. Emily could see this a long way off, that she could not be trusted. Now I saw it. Oh well, I accepted the situations and like, you know what? The initial reason for why I wanted to move out from Jake was still intact. I just wanted to get away from drugs. But now I'm constantly tormented by the fact that this girl that I've liked for so long is in the next room over, but I couldn't be in that room with her. We had to be only roommates. It was awful. It started to wreck on my brain, and I was definitely starting to slip again. Trust me when I tell you, listening to Nancy Reagan and just saying no to drugs, that lasted for maybe a week, possibly two. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt and say I could actually, restrain myself for a whole 2 weeks. When I was living with Jake, all right, my mental health problem was pretty much under control. Because apart from the guilt, which I would just smoke into oblivion anyway, I was doing really well. Everything was going smoothly for me. But see, now that I am feeling stupid and lovesick and completely disgusted with myself for letting yet another woman manipulate me, everything is going haywire in my brain. Just for the first time of living in Denver, I was beginning to entertain the possibility that maybe I need to move back home. Maybe it's time for me to go back to New York, because something else began that had kind of been dormant for a long time. I started to fantasize about killing myself again. I was facing all kinds of dark things in my brain. I couldn't take. I was so frustrated with how life was. I was absolutely feeling Denver's cold, hard walls kind of like closing in on me, like that trash compactor scene in Star Wars. I felt like I was just about moments away from being crushed. I felt trapped, and it was starting to close in on me. I love living in Denver. I said this last time that in order for me to stay there, I needed to change things because there was no other way it was sustainable. I could not continue. I'm an outdoorsy person, so the fact that you could just see mountains pretty much everywhere you went in Denver it's a dream. I love the people there. I love the pace of life. It was paradise to me because, I would go out and hike a lot. I would climb mountains. It was just, I loved it. I loved being in Denver, but it was becoming obvious to me that Denver was winding down, that I needed to possibly consider it was time to move back home. Okay, that's good. But unbeknownst to me, again, there's one more very important phase I need to go through before I do move back home. So, like I said, my sobriety was very short-lived. I started smoking pot like it was going out of style. If I had it, I was smoking all day, every day. Somehow, it's ironic, really, that I left Jake to get away from the moderate amount of smoking that I was doing there. Now I'm in my different apartment. It's 24/7, if at all possible. I had this morning routine that I would do. Every morning, if I had it, my hand would turn off the alarm clock and move over a couple inches and grab the pipe that I had preloaded the night before and start smoking. I mean, my brain is just barely awake for 10 seconds and I'm already smoking pot. Before I left my bed, I was stoned for the day. And believe me, at this point, it stayed that way all day long. Everything I did, including driving, was pretty much under the influence of drugs. My valet job was just unbelievably cool. And the owners knew I was a total stoner, but they didn't care because I was a hard worker. And my personality was very welcoming. I had my regulars loved parking with me. I never got complaints. So they just he keeps this up. Who cares if he smokes pot? I was getting the best gigs. I valeted John Elway's retirement party, which was just off the charts. Oh man, it was amazing. Fortunately, I didn't get a chance to meet him, but I did meet a bunch of other football players, and I parked their cars. And there was a rumor going around, though I can't confirm it, but Kevin Costner apparently was there. It was the party to be at, that's for sure. I also got a regular gig valeting at this preposterously upscale mall. It was just ridiculous. The Bronco players were shopping there, and they were always parking their cars with me too. And I started to get to know several of them. And one of the second string, backup linebackers knew I was a pothead. I don't remember how that conversation came up, but somehow he knew. So, he'd pull up and I'd open the door for him. He'd get out, I'd get in. And he'd be like, all right, your tip's in the glove box. Just stay in my car and smoke it. The dude was leaving me this super high grade pot. That was my tip. This guy, oh my goodness, I loved when he showed up. I could basically hear him coming before I could see his excursion because he had this souped up, tricked out excursion with, 87 different speakers in this thing. The thing was thumping, trust me. I was also parking Vipers and Hummers and Corvettes and Escalades and yada, yada, yada. One guy brought his Ferrari to the mall. It was amazing. All these cars I was parking. I was also valeting at these upscale nightclubs and fancy restaurants downtown. I met a senator one night when I parked her Bentley. It was just amazing. I also got to valet downtown during Y2K. I think I probably volunteered for it because I thought, I don't want to miss this. If the world's going to end, I want to have a front row seat to this thing. However, as we all know who survived Y2K, it was a total womp. Nothing happened. The city was deathly silent. It was so eerie because everybody was too paranoid to leave their houses and come downtown. Oh well. Though I love this job, I was not making a lot of money. I've already said that, so I was feeling bad making Amber pay for so much. I thought, I got to start pulling my weight more. Why? It's just who I am. So I only got a job delivering newspapers at night. So I'd go valet and pretty much usually leave what I was doing to go deliver papers as well. Of course, I'm doing this stoned the entire time. So yeah, things are starting to wind down here. I am at the precipice of the final 9 months where, for all intents and purposes, those final 9 months, I lived like a poor rock star. I somehow found a way to become even more of a drug addict in those final 9 months than I ever was up to this point. But something needs to happen first. A shadowy figure needs to walk across a windswept desert and invade the dying, small, one-horse town I was living in. Allow me to wax poetic here, because this poor old friend of mine, he needs to be reintroduced. But sadly, he is no longer the old friend that he used to be. He is now damaged, he is broken, and he is carrying a snarling, rabies-infested monkey like a backpack, snarling at his, chipping at his ear everywhere he went. He's homeless, and he's willing to do whatever he can to get a roof over his head. I now, because Amber, she was done using me basically and just unceremoniously moved out, I need a roommate too. So I'm like, all right, this old friend who's back in town, I'll let you come back. That old friend is Mark, and Mark is no longer the nice, gentle, giving guy he was when he left. He's a monster now. And we're going to talk about him next time because, ooh, man, scary stuff. But as I love to do, I like to wrap these stories up with encouragement, a reminder that we all go through life with questions. We all have questions, and we are always looking for answers to these questions. And more often than not, as I did for a very long time, I was looking to all the wrong answers to solve the question. I was looking to drugs and a girl. Oh my goodness, a girl. Okay. Looking at all the other things that to solve what was going on in my brain, all my problems. But surprise, surprise, for those of you watching this story, you know who the answer is, because I'm always saying Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the answer to every question. This sounds totally hokey and holy roller. I understand. I know. I used to think that way. But with no arrogance and no cockiness, I'm telling you right now, I pursued just about every other answer to the question of my heart and my mind. When I finally came to the end of myself and Jesus gently and kindly revealed himself to me as being the answer I've been looking for all this time, I couldn't help but say, yes, absolutely. I will follow you to my last dying breath. And he began the process of cleaning me up, fixing me, and helped me get the help I needed for my mental health. I'm going to touch on this more in a different story, and I'm only going to just say this right now. Mental health is not just a state of the mind, no pun intended. There is damage there. There is chemical imbalances. Bible reading and praying does not fix that, but it is a big help. It is a help because there are more things going on for those that are suffering with mental health and have no idea who this Jesus person is. So, all right, here's my cat. I'll talk to you later, my friends. Till we talk next time, keep pressing on.